Hello, everyone. Just this is another chance for us to gather together and just to discuss our teaching stuff. I'm really happy today that we have this chance to discuss such an important topic like integrating pronunciation. But before we start, I'd like to tell you that I just missed you a lot. Today on my Instagram, I posted that apart from the content, which will be definitely valuable one, I do miss our chat. I do miss having all those comments in the chat box. I do miss those flags, different countries. This is quite just such a nice feeling to have all the colleagues around the globe together while we're presenting our webinar. So I'm really thankful to you for joining this webinar. Thank you. And as usual, while I'll be presenting our speaker, I'd like to ask you to leave your comments and to let us know which country you're from. Just it's so nice to see that we are definitely a huge international teaching community. So let me tell you that today, this is my honor, to be honest, to present this person. You can see him on the screen now, Mr. Adriano Zanetti from Brazil, and he's going to share those special and important. I'm not sure what happened. So he's going to share those important things, which are about how we can integrate pronunciation into our English classrooms. To be honest, I'm really happy you're back, Adriana. Yeah. And to be honest, I know that sometimes teachers, they tend to skip that part. I mean, they tend to skip teaching pronunciation in our classrooms, not just because they don't know how to do that, but maybe because we are really overloaded with all those skills that we should teach, like reading, writing, listening, speaking, then vocabulary, grammar, and we simply can't find any room for teaching pronunciation. And this is why this topic seems to be like really important to me. So, Adriana, let us know what to expect today.
First of all, I would like to thank you so very much for having me on this webinar. And it's a pleasure to see so many happy faces, even though I don't see them. Um, but yes, I'd like to share with you a little knowledge that I have from my Brazilian perspective. And teaching pronunciation hit me when I was a student in Scotland, you know, and I said, well, this is something that I need to take care of. Otherwise, things are going to get complicated, as I was a language student myself. So this is something I need to develop as a language teacher in order to avoid some issues I was having as a student. And then I started, being more critical of what was going on in the English language as a means to minimize some pain and maximize some gain. So the idea came of being attentive to what the phenomenon of the linguistic phenomenon was and how I could assist using the strategies I used with myself and to myself with my students. And from that moment on, the awareness that I gained from it, I tried to pass on to my students, and it started to work effectively. And that became part of my teaching, let's say, strategies, my teaching practices. And after some 25, 30 years today, I can see that it has worked in practice for me as a student and for me as a language teacher. And I'm here today to try and share it with you. And hopefully, in the end of the day, we can, go home with something within our pockets.
Yeah, thank you. To be honest, I have just high expectations today, really, because I feel like this topic is really important for every teacher. And well, I would ask you to share your screen again. And while you are sharing your screen, I'd like, oh, I can see new faces. Hello, Bolivia. Hello, Turkey, Macedonia. Hello, Argentina, Georgia, Ukraine. Yeah, Peru, Greece, some Iran, so many countries. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to know that I'd like you to know that, due to the technical things, while presenting, Adriana can't see the chat box. So I'll be the person who will be helping him. Just as soon as I see your questions or your comments, I'm going to put the comments on the screen and actually maybe even interrupt Adriana a bit and ask him your questions, because I feel like if you have a question, this is a very good thing, because as usual, as teachers, we always say, well, like, please, students, ask questions. It means that you're really interested, and it inspires us, definitely. So please feel free to ask your questions. And yeah, I know Adriana prepared some questions for you as well. So as soon as you see the questions, please answer them in the chat box, and I'll be able to put them on the screen and then ask questions and maybe comment your comments as well. So I do hope that we'll have that cooperation or collaboration. So yes, Adriana, I can see your presentation. So let's get down to business. This is what I'm really looking for. Okay, so your presentation is on the screen. Again, if you don't mind, could you just minimize those toolbars, those tools? Yeah, okay, great. I hope everyone can see the screen clearly. Yeah, hello, Marcella. Georgia, European University. Yep, so Adriana, wishing you luck, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. On all fairness, I would like to say a big thank you to Tamar, who through her I got to meet you, Eva, and it's been amazing to notice how hardworking people you girls are. And thank you again for once again for having me here.
Thank you.
Right. So my main aim today is to raise a few awareness of how to deal with pronunciation to everyday lessons. I have put on a very provocative title, which is "Send the Maid" or "Sam the Maid," which is a feature of English pronunciation, which is called juncture, in which you have, lexical items and grammatical items used differently, still sounding the same thing. And my background knowledge of teaching English goes back to 1989, so I go back a long time through ups and downs. I was educated in a audiolingual visual method, so that involved lots of pronunciation work, while drills and repetitions, and that gave me solid background that pronunciation really works in terms of acquiring a language. And here we have some words which are closely and absolutely connected on how pronunciation should be working in the classrooms, and if some of them are familiar to you, that's nice. If most of them are familiar to you, that's brilliant. If not many of them are familiar to you, so that is a flag that is waving to you. So maybe it's high time you started thinking about it, and here's a good chance, at least for us as a speaker of English as a language, foreign language, as well as a teacher of English as a foreign language. And maybe we have here in our rooms people who are speakers of English as a second language or teachers of English as a second language. And here I have a sort of, let's say, a challenge for you. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, but still turned into a minute, for you to make out how you would pronounce these sentences or phrases.
Okay, would you like our participants just maybe to type these sentences in the chat box? Maybe some of them they can guess how to spell what is written here.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you'd like to, you can just type in the chat box at least one sentence or one phrase, if you can guess what's going on the screen now. Yeah,
Tamar
I'm
got
trying
one.
to do the. Did you mean persuasion? Did you mean persuasion? Yeah, Tamar. Yes, thank you, Tamar. This is the first, right? Yeah, the first
got it.
answer. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, just because I know that we have that time cap or delay, so we have to wait for a couple of seconds. Come on over, Tamar says. Yep, I can see. Come on over. Natalie, come on over. Yeah. Miss Anastasia. I can see Marcella. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, we have Azra. Thank you. Miss Flavia, thank you. Yeah. So, we
One
can
more.
continue. One more. Okay, we're waiting. One more. She really wanna get high.
That's great.
That's the
what
way I like it.
what about this one?
I'm not sure which one.
This one I'm showing here.
It's just like challenge for me. You know? That's
But
the way. Yeah,
Patricia got it. That's the way I like it.
yeah, yeah, and Mr. Mark Burridge as well. Yeah, Miss Natalia. That's the way I like it. Right. Yeah.
All right. So just to give you a taste of how we could integrate the pronunciation to the classroom, I would select some song titles or catchy phrases at the moment, and use them in the classrooms as a catchy thing, like a warmer or a filler or anything. In this case, I used some, phrases or song phrases or titles of music or anything that you've got in your mind. And why do I do that? Because I have some shared beliefs. If you look at what 𝗭𝗲𝗁𝗁 said in one of his BRAZ-TESOL sessions in Brazil, BRAZ-TESOL is an association in my country in which we have all the Brazilian, English teachers. I mean, the ones who are interested in participating in the association, and we have events, all year round with participants from all over the country, as well as international participants like 𝗭𝗲𝗁𝗁 himself. And that's why he says speaking is equivalent to spelling and punctuation in writing. So if you're dealing with listening and speaking activities, so it's fair to say that pronunciation is the ligament that goes between listening and speaking. And he goes on to say that if we as educators tend to skip pronunciation work in our daily practices, so what we are telling, or the message we are giving to our students ourselves, is that the pronunciation is not that really important. So his message is, and I picked it up very quickly, that hang on, pronunciation is a key factor to develop our listening activity, in classrooms. And by developing the listening activities in classroom, we are going to develop our listening abilities and skills as well. So from my perspective as a teacher in Brazil, here I have spotted, from experiences, some issues that my students, tended to produce in the classroom. And I've got too many, but can you have a look and try to spot some of the issues that the students can or might be getting wrong, if I could say so?
So, Adriana, how would you like us to do that? Like, I can see the first sentence. You're in my, I believe it should be heart, right? You're
Yes.
in my heart and in my soul.
Exactly. I give an example. For
Yeah.
example,
So maybe participants. Yeah. Thank you, Cecile. Heart. Yeah. Maybe participants could just type incorrect word and correct word, right?
thank you for the help, Eva.
Uh, Thank you for presenting this material. Yeah, I can see answers. So, okay. So we're still. Thank you, Marcella, for your comment. I agree with everything you say. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Miss Gilnara, heart, heard. Speaking. Told. We have. Okay, right.
Yes.
The and the. Those and
Yes.
those. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting activity to present to our students to support the pronunciation issues, even not as teachers, but as students.
Yeah. And it's interesting to mention, Eva, that this was a feedback activity after some sessions in our let's say week. So after a week of speaking activities and tasks, I would, let's say, this is the feedback of the week. These are some sentences you used in our activities. Let's get some feedback on pronunciation. And the funny thing is that, oh, I said that. I remember saying that.
Yeah, great. It's like delayed error correction, but in terms of pronunciation. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Great idea. Thank you.
hmm and if you see, these are issues that we Brazilians tend to face. If you look at number 15, for example, here we have intrusive E and sounds which are not existent in English. Andi, abouti, bati, ari, difficult to pronounce. So we tend to use this intrusive E, and then obviously it breaks down communication. So moving on. Um, we have some phonological issues. Um, Mind you, I'm based my presentation on the issues I have between the EP, European Portuguese, because Brazil was a colony to Portugal, and we have the influence of European Portuguese. So we serve as a model to European Portuguese, but we have the Brazilian Portuguese as a prestige, the one which is spoken in Rio de Janeiro. And our Brazilian Portuguese is different from European Portuguese in a number of ways: vocabulary, a bit of grammar, but basically in terms of timing. European Portuguese is a bit similar, or in many ways similar to English. It's stress timed, whereas the Brazilian Portuguese is syllable timed. So this is a huge difference when we compare the two Portugueses. So one sentence in Portuguese, our Portuguese, said in European Portuguese is going to be a bit difficult for them to understand us, and vice versa. So, with that in mind, our issues, are quite relevant in terms of getting to know how the phonological system works as compared to the English one, so that we can, again, minimize the conflicts and maximize the gain. Once we are aware that there is difference, or there are differences that can be worked on, and worked out, obviously. So we start to narrow down the chances of increasing mistakes or fossilizing things that should not be there. And us, teachers or educators, are the ones who should be, in the front line to avoid this kind of, or at least try to avoid this kind of issues in the long run. Because if we start working this at the very beginning, the chances are that when students get to a good level of grammar, vocabulary, listening, reading, writing strategies, but their pronunciation is not up to a level in terms of all the other abilities, they're still struggling with pronunciation, that's not really fair with the students. So maybe we're the ones to blame for not having the right attitudes towards pronunciation. So having a good knowledge or a sound knowledge of both language systems or phonological systems, it's really the way to go so that we can assist our students in a good way. So I try to work on steps, and the steps are based on 5 attitudes. The first one is the awareness part, knowing that there are differences between the systems, the pronunciation and everything. Second one, ear training. And that's the part where drills, repetition comes next, because then you have your ear being trained, then you recognize what is being heard, then you start repeating what you heard, what you recognize, and you start with later on the production. So it's just like a cycle. Oh, that is what's happening. Now I can recognize what I am training to recognize. Now I can repeat, and now I can produce. So it's just like developing a system or habit formation in terms of pronunciation. And in the end of the day, it falls back on habit formation. It's emulating and getting your own way. Mind you, we're not asking for 100% native-like pronunciation. That's not the case. What we're trying to do is to get different from our pronunciation and close to what English is. Nobody wants to get 100% native-like pronunciation unless you are really demanded to do that. And how can we do that? 3 areas basically: grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So the integration of such systems are there. So if you're teaching grammar, find a way to insert pronunciation. If you're teaching vocabulary, find a way to teach vocabulary. And if you're teaching pronunciation, the name itself suggests it lends itself to the teaching of that particular feature. And why is it important? Obviously, speaking skills, then listening skills, then intelligibility. Because when you hear better, you are understood better, and that's what we want to achieve: intelligibility and confidence building. The moment you are aware of the things you can get right as opposed to the things that you are getting wrong, so you are confident. You can go to a conference, you can deliver your presentation, you can understand the presentation, you allay your fears of having to do this. You break the panic block, and that is a very important thing, because the moment you get confident at what you are going to say, then everything starts falling into place. And here's a question for you before we move on to a second step. Do you think it's important to draw students' attention to pronunciation on day one?
They're quite nice question, I would say. Yeah, I've never thought about that. And it would be nice if you could answer in the chat box, just share your ideas. What do you think about that? And while you are typing there, Adriana, we have a question for you from our participants. Miss Anastasia, she's asking, what do you think? Is it okay to give our students the homework to work with dictionaries for the improvement of their pronunciation?
Thank you for the question, Anastasia. Yes, definitely. The next part of my presentation, I'm going to address to the issue of dictionary work. And yes, I am totally in favor of that. And in fact, the use of dictionary is a good source of information, let alone knowledge. And definitely, this is one source of creating independence from us, the teacher. You know, yeah, yes, I would definitely suggest that.
Thank you. And we have first answers. So the first one is from Greece, from 𝗭𝗱𝗿𝗶𝗁𝗶. He says yes. Then from Ukraine, Miss Natalia Protsip, yes. I'm not sure about the country. We have Norm saying yes. Marcela from Argentina, yes. Miss Gulnara from Azerbaijan, it would be great. Yep, Miss Anastasia, yes, and absolutely from Marcella. So we have these answers. Yeah.
All right. So we are a bunch of yeses people, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on. Now, there are major steps and like stepping stones that we can use for, bottom up or top down approaches. I will start from bottom up and I'll let you know that sometimes top down will be nice as well. So, are you familiar with the IPA, the phonemic chart alphabet? If you are, that's fine. If you're not, don't worry about it, because this is the International Phonemic Alphabet, and this is one activity I use for awareness. And have got some questions I usually, get the students to ask, and I don't see any problems in our discussing this in our own language. We can use it to discuss. I use them in Portuguese as well. You can use it in your L1. That's fine, as long as you are using your own language to talk about English, not use your Portuguese to discuss activities that should be done in English. And so it's a way of raising awareness. So here we have, then later on, more to this. So we can always work on saying that this is an achievable goal. I tell them this is an achievable goal. We have technically 44 sounds. And mathematically speaking, if you have 44 sounds, you have 44 days, one sound a day. Luckily, in Portuguese, like the consonants, they are quite similar to us, because Portuguese is a Romance language, Latin origin languages. So the symbols, the phonemic symbols, are quite similar to the sounds. So like p, b, t, d, it's just like very similar to the way we write, and very few are different from the way we spell. And this is what I do with them, using some dots to simulate what we have in Portuguese as similar sounds like ch, j, k, g, f, v. These ones are, fricatives. And, in the end of the day, these are similar ones, don't exist in Portuguese, like the interdental th, the, I was talking to Eva the other day. Um, People who speak like the in Portuguese, usually they've got some speech issues. They need to go and see a speech therapist to correct the problem. And when they start learning English, they need to make these sounds. They go like, oh my God, I spent 5 years of my life trying to correct the problem, and now I have to go to the problem again. So it's kind of frustrating for them. So this is to visualize to the students that the blue sounds are similar to Portuguese. You know, the green ones are the ones which we have problems with. They are non-existent. Yeah. For example, the sound of r, it's rhotic. The rhoticity in Portuguese is different. For example, the word in Portuguese for rat, we say rato. We don't say rat, say rato. It's kind of, glottal. So it's difficult for us. So the word like restaurant, we would say restaurant, not restaurant. So that is confusing for us. So these are sounds which need to work on. And here we have the difference between voiced and unvoiced. So a typical activity for this, I usually do in the classroom, just like you get a sheet of paper and you go like b, b, b. Then you go for t, d, t, d. I go for t, j, t, j, f, v, v. So something physical that you can use, to teach them. It's good fun because they are actually seeing that, oh, this is not only sounds, there are physical elements, involved in the pronunciation thing. And so we have these potential problems. I don't know much about your own languages, but I think it's worth investigating what the potential problems are. For us, the dark L, we tend to say bottle, not bottle, bill, not bill. Especially in the middle of the words, we say milk, not milk. Yeah. The aspiration of p, p, k, d, t. So here I have a sentence in Brazilian, Portuguese, just to give you a difference. Let me just adjust my mic. I'll speak it in Brazilian Portuguese, okay? Temos que parar de criticar o futebol brasileiro. That's Brazilian. Now I'll say it with the plosive aspiration of these consonants. Temos que parar de criticar o futebol brasileiro. Can you notice the difference? Okay. Now I'm going to use another technique, now adding intonation to this. The Brazilian intonation. Temos que parar de criticar o futebol brasileiro. Now using a different intonation from Brazilian Portuguese, BP. Temos que parar de criticar o futebol brasileiro. Now what I'm doing here, I'm using the aspiration of the consonants as well as the rhythm intonation of English or the European Portuguese. And as I mentioned before, the r and h, so we tend to mix the head for red. So what we do, or what I do, I just create some tongue twisters, Funny. And I ask them later on as homework or as a creative thing, you create your own tongue twisters so that you can work on your h and r sounds. This one, I just gave the examples, And moving on, I go on with the s and z sounds. There's a good chance because they will have understood from when I was explaining the s, z movements, like no vibration, s, z, vibration. So they will notice that ice for eyes, yeah. Very useful when we're teaching grammar with the present simple. The th sounds, which are issue for us, so in this case, this is not going to leave us, forever. Something we need to deal with. Sometimes it does not break communication, so don't worry too much about this. But when it's breaking down communication, then it's time to act, like mixing the word third for third. Then it's time that you need to intervene. The past endings, when they are in isolation, yep, they will make a difference. But when they are in connected speech, the T and D will be cut out. And so, using my own language as examples of the sounds that you have in Portuguese, tinto, catch. So what am I doing here? I'm associating the sound in Portuguese, ch, with the spelling in English, catch. Dia, message. Conga, doing. Gato, good, no difference. Ferve, fix. So what am I using? I'm using my own language as a way to associate that English is different in some aspects, but yes, it is similar in many other aspects. So let's use the similarities to our own advantages, And the moment the students can visualize that there are many similarities, and sometimes more similarities than differences, so you start getting them into your own game. And maybe you can start thinking about your own language and doing your analysis of what you can use to your own advantage is, trust me, is the way to go. Because then the awareness point is there in a game. Noticing, oh, this is very similar to my language. I can use this. Right. In terms of the vowels, so these are the vowels we have. And we have problems with the long and short vowels. So cheap and chip are hard for us. I believe it's for most of other languages. So when it comes to long and short vowels, we need to be aware of that, because the quality of the vowels will change. So we may say one thing for another and vice versa. So that is a problematic. And I went through the trouble of find words in Portuguese that could be near equivalent to that, And we have the issue of the position of our mouth, so something visually speaking as well, like spread position, open position, like visually showing E. So these ones are going to be more spread, more rounded, high, low. Yeah. So visually speaking, experimenting with that. When it comes to the diphthongs, we have the key vowel, which is I, U, E, and the glide, I, U. So there's always a glide, and the glide is to I, A, I, O, and ow. In Portuguese, we have some advantages because we have A, we have oi, I, U, ow. So that's not a problem for us. So basically, the ones we have, it's and which are more difficult for us. So again, I work with tongue twisters. I create one. Now it's your creativity. Let's see what comes out of that. And we pass the ball around. And then it comes to the practice again. Let's give it a try. Can you write down what you have? You don't need to go for number 1, 2, 3. You can shoot from different numbers.
So which word should we start with?
It's your choice. Take a pick.
Okay, just put the number of the word and type the word we have.
Yeah.
Because I believe number 9 just path. Round. Yeah, I'm trying to just my screen is quite small, so I'm trying to guess even chip. It's 16. Yeah.
You got 9. You got 916 right.
Yeah. What about number 15? Rose. Rose. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. You have to pronounce firstly in order to hear how it sounds. Then you can catch the word. Yeah. So just number and the word. Which one can you recognize? Yes, thank you. We can change, Marcella says, we can change the meaning if you don't use them correctly. Yeah, definitely, especially when it comes to some minimal pairs, Yeah, Miss Natalia Prosiv 8, where and where. So, where? Which one? Yeah, 15 rows. 18 fox. Fox. Yeah,
Fox.
like fox, because George, he typed like FOLKS, but fox.
Not folks, fox, the animal.
A fox. Okay, so this another one, another word. Yeah, steak for number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Bird. Yeah. Miss Granada says she can't see anything. Just I'm not sure why. Maybe you should reload the page. Yeah, 11 ham, jam, round, 16 chip. Yeah, Tina. Yeah, those people who are watching on cell phones, they can't see everything properly. But if you'd like to, you can go then back to the recording and watch it again, or just you can watch this particular part.
So, it's just like, sorry, I'm giving you the answers because of timing constraints. It's just like activity, after working on the vocabulary in the classroom, then you have the words. Bingo. So it's just a compilation of the words in the unit or in the session or in the lessons, 2 or 3 lessons. Then you've got a game, and there you go. It's the ideal thing is that we would be working on pronunciation and have students, dragging the words around, like fox here, cheap there, and where. So it's interactive thing, And to the dictionary part, where we got a question beforehand. That's it. The dictionary thing, awareness of how to use dictionary. And this is part of learner training, I think Anastasia who asked us about dictionary, right? It's part of our learner training to use dictionaries in the classroom. We know the students are not bombarded with information on their mobile phones, but we make sure that they can flip through dictionaries in a classroom as well. So awareness questions as part of the learner training, and for students to talk about it's meta linguistic self-awareness. And this obviously can be discussed in your own language. It doesn't matter. You're using English as a means of getting the English correctly, Right. In terms of relevance, in Brazilian Portuguese environment, these three sounds are not problems for us to learn. So in my environment, probably I would not spend time working with these sounds, but I would absolutely invest time working on these ones because A and E are issues in our language. So as an educator, I could separate that investment on sounds which are not relevant to be worked on because it's part of our language. So that would cause no problem in terms of speech features. But instead, I would definitely work on A and E as part of my teaching because then would break down communication like pitch and peach, um, list and least, right? Another relevant sound to work as part of integrating skills or integrating pronunciation to our listening skills, the, you know. And a question for you.
So the question is whether we find it relevant to work in sounds and features which are not problematic for students. Yeah, it's quite interesting. What do you think? Yeah, on one hand, it seems like you shouldn't invest that time into it. But on the other hand, it could be like something where students can feel secure in order to continue to work on those problematic points. So, like, not to feel completely confused with the pronunciation, not to give up later on. Maybe, like, as a part of scaffolding, like starting with the easiest ones and then going to the most difficult ones. But I'm not sure what would. So we have the idea that perhaps we can skip them. So we have I don't spend time in what they can produce properly. Ms. Patricia said that we should use them in connected speech. Yeah. There is the idea that we can give positive feedback to guarantee that they know what they know. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But just I'm really curious to hear your ideas concerning that.
My idea.
Yeah.
Yep. My idea is simply that these sounds which are part of our own language, or which the sounds which are non problematic, will lend themselves to consolidation. And I think you read that somebody said something about connected speech. Is that right?
Yeah, it was Patricia. She says to use them in connected speech. Yep.
Yes. And that is the idea that these sounds will take care of themselves and be emphasized uh, or stressed the importance of getting them right in other areas other than isolated sounds or isolated working on them, you know? And that's what I believe. If they are not causing problems in isolation, so if they come to cause any other problems in connected speech, that's where you draw the attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, who said that?
Miss Patricia Arbona from Argentina. Yeah.
Brilliant. Very, very nice comment.
Yeah. Thank you from Patricia. I'm sure she would say that. Okay.
All right. Can we move on?
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
Now, the sounds, or at what level, the segmental level, um, we tend to have some serious problems, with the segmental level, the word stress. For example, words like hotel in Portuguese, which is hotel in English. The word stress is quite similar, but we tend to say hotel. And in Portuguese, we don't say hotel, we say hotel, but we tend to say hotel in English. So again, like polícia, we say polícia in Portuguese, and we say police in English, and we should say place in English. So the stress is more like the same, but we tend to say it, in a different way. So what I do, I usually get some countries and depending on the word list we have for the unit or for the lesson, I have a phonological dictation. I'll just give you one example, here, in which I have the pattern: El Salvador, intelligent, uncomfortable; Switzerland, fortunate, comfortable; Scotland, fortune; Brazil, prefer, divide. And this is something you can always adapt to your environment, to your reality, and to the word list that you have in your units. And you can divide them into adjectives, like here. You can divide them into verbs, like here you have in Brazil. So it all depends on how creative you can get and the needs you have for your lessons, And there's a way I find to incorporate, because if they get the name of the country, El Salvador, they will associate on how to pronounce this, So you're using your mind's mouth, El Salvador, intelligent. And I was, as I said at the beginning, I was taught into the audiovisual lingo method. So humming was part of my learning. So I would go, mm-hmm, intelligent, mm-hmm, uncomfortable, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, fortune. Mm-hmm. So I would do this a lot to get the rhythm and the intonation, the harmony of the word, and integrating this into grammar. Here we're talking about the superlative with an added bonus with the present perfect, and training: polluted, impatient, comfortable, interesting, expensive, beautiful. And now copy the rhythm. And as I said, you can use the humming. It's the most polluted city I've ever been to. That was part of my learning, and I used this with my students, believe it or not. So integrating pronunciation with grammar and using word stress. Another use of chunks, adjectives with verbs. Difficult to remember, important to learn, interesting place to visit. And now we're adding stressed chunks and using yes or no questions, like rhythm and intonation as well. Working with chunks, compound nouns, traffic lights, boarding pass. Usually we tend to stress the first word rather than the second: traffic lights, boarding pass, car park. Yeah. Working with chunks and then matching activities, and always getting the intonation, as opposed to saying read the newspapers. It's not natural. Read the newspaper. So read the newspaper. And working with the melody, with the rhythm and everything. Using phonemic scripts, teaching numbers. Yeah. And here is a ranking of a list of things that you can use in slots in the classroom, you know, from isolated sounds to pronunciation features. As I said, Portuguese is a syllabic language, and people tend to use Portuguese as, you know, to count syllables. And very often do I find students in the classroom asking, how many syllables does sociable have? So it's difficult to count syllables in English because it's, you know, there are lots of, you know, consonant clusters. So one way is to count the stresses. So, sh, bo. So you go for 3 stresses or syllables, you know, so counting. So, sh, bo. So the sounds. Understanding. Yeah, so we're using the ear training again. Independent. Communicative. And that's the way you work with how many syllables are there. So look at the sounds, count the sounds that you can hear, and then you'll find it out. And when the pronunciation goes wrong, like some will say helpful, 3 syllables. No, you're doing it wrong. You don't say helpful. So then when the awareness is going to place, so it's not helpful, it's helpful. Yeah. So we're using our, in my case, my Portuguese language as you know, to our advantage. And reading aloud. This is something I used to do a lot as a student, because we would have to present sketches. We had to create sketches. So we would create a text or a dialogue, you know, and we would read or present it in front of the class. Massively shy I was, but I was putting on a character. So it was not me talking, it was a character. So we can use the tape scripts, you know, to train this kind of features. So reading aloud is great, trust me. Right. A question for you, Eva?
Yeah, I'm here. So the question, do you tend to address towards stress on regular basis? That's quite interesting to know what's going on in our classrooms. Yeah. I would say, actually, that's my own experience and what I've seen so far. We do not do that regularly, you know, towards stress. Yeah, definitely we do it as a part of if we work with that PPP model, and while having that first P, definitely we should work on pronunciation, and there we pay attention to word stress, but not on a regular basis, probably. I'm not sure. Just I'm curious what other participants would say about that. We're still waiting. Yep. So what do you think? What do you have? What's your experience? Since we have people from different parts of the world, it's quite interesting to see what's going on in different countries concerning these particular questions. Yeah. Yeah, Azra, I do agree with you that it's important, but do you tend to do that? Do you prone to addressing the word stress? That's interesting. As I said in the beginning of the webinar, you know, sometimes we do not pay that much attention to pronunciation, just because we have so many things to cover, and maybe we sacrifice, that pronunciation part sometimes. Yeah, I feel guilty now.
Take the shame, Eva. You shouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah. One thing I would like to mention, Eva, I'm just going back here for a moment. Um, when I hang on a second, when I showed this activity, for example, I am working here on at what level, right? But here, if you see, um, this is what level being worked on prominence. It's the word level being worked out on sentence stress or connected speech.
Mhm.
So even though I'm working on, photographer or photographing, this is the word now attached to a whole bunch of contextualized words, you know, and that's the funny part, because if they cannot differentiate photographer from photographing, so that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to mix at what level and whenever possible and should be possible or made possible to be, inserted into the connect speech, which brings us to the next topic, stress intonation, which, is different from Portuguese. And that is a pebble in our shoes, how to use the intonation and in terms of politeness. Um, Rising and falling tones in questions, uh, the rising and falling tones. It has to do with an open question and yes or no questions. So here we are dealing with grammar again. If the answer yes, then your voice goes up. If the answer is open, then your voice goes down. So um, that's plain simple grammatical rules being influencing pronunciation and vice versa. Um, some discussions that can be done, at early stages of the learning environment. So if you have the questions to be discussed in the classroom, you miss the opportunity to draw the attention to what you like doing in your free time, and you do not, let's say, draw attention to the intonation and to the polite intonation to be used in that phrase. Please don't do that. Don't miss this opportunity. What do you like doing in your free time doesn't show emotions um, when you are actually speaking. If somebody asks me in Portuguese, the same sentence in Portuguese, o que você faz no seu tempo livre? I'm not willing to answer the person because she doesn't show any interest in that question to me. Yeah. So we are the ones, the soul behind the face. No, please, can you ask this question again? Now with interest, right? Now, with simple daily phrases, classroom language, and 7 simple phrases. Look at how many things or features of English we can work on only 7 simple phrases. If you take sorry and sorry, you can work on rhythm, intonation. Sorry being apologetic. Sorry for not understanding. So there is function of sorry and sorry. Look at linking. I'm afraid I don't know. I'm afraid I. Linking, elision, assimilation. You see 7 simple daily phrases used in the classroom lend themselves to a whole bunch of pronunciation work. So bearing that in mind, then we could say, in all fairness, that it should not be difficult for us to a certain extent to bin pronunciation activities from our daily activities. No, much to the contrary, it should be technically easier for us to bear in mind what features can I use to take advantage of these features in the classroom today. Yeah, and the sentence stress, and we basically have here some patterns. And why is it important to know? For the same reasons it is important to learn how to deal with pronunciation, speaking skills, listening skills, intelligibility, and the confidence building. And how can you do that? Grammar will help us again. Action words, these ones should get stressed, as opposed to structure words, the ones which tend to get less stress. And I kind of tell my students, this is like electrocardiogram. You go up, down, up, down, up, and down. And if you're speaking English with this, it means that you're dead. So if your intonation is flat, you're dead English. But if your intonation is like this, functioning like this, then you are getting somewhere. So if you look at this, you have 4 stresses. What playing do evening? That's the stress. Is a rhythm. What playing do evening? That is the stress. And you've got 4 stresses here as well. Decide, look, new job. Here we've got 11 syllables, 10 syllables, 4 stresses and 8 syllables. So you've got the 4 stresses. So you need here more grammar, a little bit fewer grammar, less grammar, and a little less grammar. But the 4 stresses are there. What playing do evening? Decide, look, new job. Bought, got, get, work is the same rhythm. Blah, 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 blah. What you need to do now is to elevate and go down the electrocardiogram, and you get the rhythm. What are you planning to do this evening? I've decided to look for a new job. I bought a car to get work. This is it. And here's something I wish I was alive with you there to see you do that, because this is very good exercise. As you can see, I've got my guitars here, and I am a musician, so this is the rhythm I trained as a young musician learning at the conservatory, and I have been using this since I became a student and a teacher. And here we have 4 rhythms, a compass of 4, A, B, C, D. So 4 to 4. And then I'm adding extra notes or extra grammar to my music. A and B and C and D. So now I have 4 beats, but 7 notes. I am improving my song. Now I have the same 4 beats, A and then B and then C and then D. I've got my 4 beats, but 10 phrases, 10 new notes. But I'm getting better at writing songs. And now I've got my 4 beats and 13 new notes. I'm getting fast. A and then it's B and then it's C and then it's D. Do you think you can do it in your own moment and give us a feedback very quickly? Can you do it? Yuva, can you help us with that?
Yeah, I'm here. Just I'm trying to pronounce everything, in my mind, just how it would sound and B and C and all that stuff. And I'm trying to guess what else I can bring, not just and then, just what else I can put instead of those words. Like, if I got you correctly, so A, B, C, and D should be like stressed words, and then we can add something in between, which should
Yeah.
be unstressed. Yeah. Yeah, I think that it would be nice for students, even for students, to develop such kind of activity than just to share and to practice. I believe they would be interested in doing that. It can bring some fun into the classrooms, and learning pronunciation wouldn't be so much stressful anymore because it
Mhm.
look like a game or maybe even writing some kind of melody. Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting part, even in everybody, is that you start draw attention, BN, CN, and D sound disappears. So AN, B, BN, C, CN, D, and then AN, B, and then B, and try, and that's the fun game.
Yeah, that's nice, especially for us, as I told you before, in Ukrainian and in Russian language, what we just have some kind of pauses, like short pauses, but we do have some kind of pauses between words. And for us, it's quite difficult to write that connected speech. And definitely, students tend to say that D sound as well. So it would be nice to train them that way. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And if you notice, when I was here, what is between the lines is actually what is down here, the structure words, and what is in the letters is the content words. So that's the rhythm. The. And the grammar is in between the stresses. So the more grammar you need, the less stressed chunk will be necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, this is exactly what Miss Patricia, she just typed a message here in the chat box. What's between the letters represents structure words. So
Who?
Miss
But
Patricia again Miss Patricia from Argentina. Yeah.
oh, she's so close yet so near,
Yeah, yeah.
and too far as well.
Okay.
Right. So what I do, I get some isolated say phrases. What I do, I ask them to now locate the content words, and I eliminate the structure words. And here I go, like cat likes hunt mice garden. You got a message. Then I do the opposite. My to the and I ask them, which version do you have a message? Cat likes hunt mice garden or my to in the so this is awareness activity, you know, from the content I can understand. So this is what you need to stress. If you stress this, I cannot understand. Like number 4, do it to or it's broken message. So that's the way to go. Broken phone, activated phone, broken phone. And I asked them to create sentences, and these ones I took from feedback activities, that they've done in class. So they said those. I collect them, wrote them in the feedback, put them on the board, spot the stress words in the sentences, and it worked from there. So I use their own material. And we have the stresses here using meta language again, you know, uh, the data using the humming thing. Good morning, and I have audio. You know, oops, I'm not going to open this because we are running out of time, right? So here we have the stress patterns. You can see there's the, and this is meta language, everyone. Every single day, this high frequency language they use. So why not take advantage of very simple language they are exposed to? Thanks a lot. Close the door. Yes, of course. Come and see. Don't forget. So simple language chunks that are there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's there. It's in within our reach. So let's do it. And again, using reading aloud. I used to do this a lot. And this one is one of my lessons, at a book um, I used to study when I was a student in the first years. So reading aloud. And using my own meta language, to use in the classroom. Things that I use in the classroom, face-to-face classrooms. I hope that we go back to that soon. So I am a model to them. Yeah. So as opposed to saying, can you open your books to page 8, please? I would show off. Can you open your books to page 8, please? What page is it? Yeah. And when you need to be strict, what's your point, Peter? Yeah. So things that I would use in the classroom with the students, like number 26. Are you done talking? To draw, silence. One more question, the last one for you, so that we can wrap up.
Yeah. So the question, do you believe that the use of meta language can be a good source of pronunciation exposure? Those sentences, questions I saw you show with us, they're like a part of instruction. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So it means that we as teachers also should practice it somehow in order to deliver it in that way, like to be role models for our students. I see what you mean. So what do you think? Do you believe that the use of meta language can be a good source of pronunciation exposure? Just probably you can type yes, no, not given, just because of IELTS classes. Yes or no, not given is excluded. We shouldn't use that. Okay. So while we are waiting, I definitely think we should do that. It's like as soon as you highlight it for yourself, you will pay more attention to this idea. Like while speaking in your classrooms, just pay attention to your pronunciation. Yeah, thank you, Miss Anastasia. Yes, we have yes. True. Yeah, I believe that almost everyone would agree that the answer should be yes here. Yeah.
How much time do I have left, Eva?
I would say like 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. And which brings us to the last part, which is the connected speech and the speech features. So, which leads to assimilation that happens in many languages. Is when one sound loses its quality to the next sound, and it's a tendency in Portuguese to, especially if we're speaking another language, to pronounce the two sounds fat boy, good boy, 10 men, whereas we can't let's say, give us the luxury of saying that, because in fact, this not happen in real life. You say fat boy, it's fat boy. So this is again training, ear training, visualizing. Yeah. So that happens with the t, these consonants. Also with that cat, that girl. So basically, two consonants, one following the other. The previous ones tend to get cut, which is um, worth drawing attention to. Yeah. Um, the sibilants like s, or z, preceded by sh or sh. So this shop has she, has she. Yeah. So something that can easily be drawn attention to. Um, uh, the received pronunciation tend to say last year, didn't you know? But in the streets or in less formal English, you're gonna hear last year, didn't you, don't you, would you, could you? Yeah. So we need to train our students to listen to this. Um, the elision part, as I mentioned before, with the past simple. When the D or T is preceded is followed by a consonant, then it tends to disappear. So carved, carved to, stopped, stopped for lunch, next day. So that it tends to disappear. Um, you have the lesion in some consonant clusters. So acts, it's very hard to pronounce. So there's a chance that this T is going to disappear and becomes X, tax, sixth. Yeah. So once the students are familiar that these are tendencies, to happen, yes, they can start, thinking about it and how to use these adjustments of pronunciations to their own advantage. And the moment they start speaking like that, curiously, we start listening or not listening and start identifying um, the words. It's funny how things like these happen. Um, I remember these things pretty well back in 1993, and I I couldn't hear people saying police. I heard them saying please. So I said, why are they saying please? I didn't say any thank you. But the context was I talking about the police? And I caught myself saying please as opposed to police. Uh, Preps, forever, collective, interesting. The first time I heard interesting in my life, I went like, Jesus, is this the English or something? So something which start, pricking my mind. So this is something I need to be aware of as a student. And then, later on, I started using it. This is teaching strategies. In some rhoticity, English can be divided into the rhoticity in areas in which English, the R is pronounced, like in car, like in car, that you have the R. Usually in American English, they have, like in car, in British English, they have a tendency not to say car, but car. And when these are, the rhoticity is asked, so you will join the English. But when it is followed by another consonant, is not pronounced her English, yeah, her own. So that's how the rhotic or the rhoticity works. And again, for Portuguese, this is kind of difficult for us because of our quality of the R sound. And that's what I mentioned, the non-rhotic. And where there is neurotic English, there is a tendency to intrude an r sound here. And very often people get confused because when somebody says the idea is, so they go like, the idea is, what's this? Yeah. Uh, Law and order. I saw it happen. And frequently, when you are aware of these things happening, you start noticing, oh, that's the neurotic accents. So the intrusion of the r sound, the idea is, and law and order, I saw it happen. This is not something which I believe is very problematic because we do it more frequently than not, more often than not. So I agree, it's already there. We don't struggle with that. I am, I ought to, they are. So I don't think this is a huge problem because I believe in most language, this is what, the tendency is. The same thing goes with the w sound. Go on. Are you inside? Are you outside? There's a w um, uh, uh, intruded in there. So I don't think it's a huge problem. But this is a phenomenon which happens in the English language. And the juncture, which is a funny part of the English language. Like the question is, what's nitrate? It's the same thing as night rate, but when you put in the context, the pronunciation is the same. What's nitrate? What's nitrate? So, and here I've got some examples. And again, I wish I was there, face to face, because when you start pronouncing it, you go like, wow, that's the same thing technically. And as we did this, you got most of it. So well done, you. Um, I would like to finish off with some shared beliefs by 𝗭𝗱𝗿𝗁𝗁. We as teachers should not be blind to the benefits of a focus on pronunciation in our lessons, And I couldn't agree more with him. And I would go further that intonation is not a luxury, but a necessity for effective communication. And the final conclusion is pronunciation is about communication. And that being so, is closely connected with listening and speaking. There is no way we can detach our speaking, our listening from pronunciation. So if our students need to learn, so they need to learn how to speak, they need to learn how to listen. And in order to couple the speaking and listening developments, they need to build up confidence so that they can face any kind of speaking task or listening task in the learning environment. But above all, and more importantly, that they can face any speaking or listening outside the classroom environment, the real world environment, because um, that's what life is about, the confusions of life. And if we can minimize the pain and maximize the pain in terms of language abilities via pronunciation, we are the ones responsible for doing it, or at least, flagging where the light in the end of the tunnel can be. And finally, good pronunciation helps intelligibility. It's so comforting and greatly rewarding when you speak with somebody from other languages other than your own language, using English that you are understood, and you can make yourself understood, and you basically understand what people are saying. And this is greatly rewarding. And these are some friends I take ideas from, should you be interested. you know And this is it from me.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, I can see that. Asra, thank you very much for your comment. Like, she's saying thank you very much, dear Eva and Adriana. Thank you, Tamar. You can stop sharing your screen just for you to see the screen normally.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay. And yeah, this is the moment when you can ask questions if you have any. It would be nice because Adriana can answer them, I believe. Yeah, I'm sure. Let's say. Yeah, and thanks a lot. Yep. We have
Oh,
comments.
I can see you
Yes,
now.
thank you. You've opened my eyes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that after this webinar, at least we'll start paying more attention to teaching pronunciation. Yeah,
Mhm.
actually, this was the main aim of this webinar, like to highlight that it's really important for us. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Argentina. I can see the comments. And yes, I should tell you that I jotted down some activities which I'm going to use exactly tomorrow because
All
I'm
right.
going to have elementary classes. So it means I can start working on several points straightforwardly tomorrow. That would be great. And I do believe you mentioned that, and I do believe that you are 100% right about that special feeling when you see that you understood. Because we had a project for, as I told you before, we had a project for students from 6 countries. So actually, um, the first part was for them like pre-recorded videos, and then they had to meet each other on Zoom, and they had to give some kind of feedback. So they had to speak in front of each other in English. So 6 countries where English is a foreign language. By the way, Miss Patricia, she was our one of the judges there, so she knows what I'm telling about. And after that, we got feedback from the students and from teachers from those countries, and they said like the most inspiring thing was that we were understood despite of living in different countries and just learning English with our local teachers. We could communicate and we could understand each other, and probably I believe that it was some kind of motivation for them to continue learning English. And that's the point what I'm trying to say now. Like here in chat, I always ask you in the chat box, you can find your let's say teacher bodies. Yeah, you can find teachers from other countries. You can start doing some kind of projects, and even you can invite students to your online classrooms. I don't know, can I say like fortunately or unfortunately, but anyway, fortunately, we know how to deal with technology. We can join our classrooms, we can work together just for our students to see that everything that has been done so far is not in vain, and they can understand students from Brazil, from Argentina, from Georgia, Ukraine, and even the UK. Just the way for us to show our students that pronunciation really matters. So this is my message for today. Yeah.
And absolutely, I couldn't agree more. You know, I just read here that somebody, you've opened my eyes. I would add, I believe that I've opened your ears as well, because it's so good to hear, these testimonials that people are just saying that I keep saying that we are souls behind the faces. Um, and if we are able to put on a smile on our students' face in the end of the day, that they can understand, they can be understood, that we ourselves participate in international conferences and people go like, wow, I got a message of what Adriana is saying, of what Eva is saying, or whoever is saying. And this is, I know, it's priceless. It's priceless because not only are you getting the content across, but you are doing it with style. And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So it's time for us just to say goodbye. And I'm so grateful to you, Adriana, for sharing this really valuable information. Because what I like as a teacher, not only as a teacher trainer, as a teacher, I do prefer when our webinars they have some kind of really practical ideas. It means that you watch the webinar, you can see that okay, this is the specific problem I have in my classrooms, and this is the solution for me, actually. So thank you very much for sharing this information and for these practical ideas. And I do hope that we'll be able to see you later on again with your nice ideas. I'm pretty sure that you're just like a treasure box with your ideas. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you for participating in this webinar. And what I can say, see you soon. Have a great day, or I don't know, evening, night, or wherever you are.
All right. Thank you so very much. You, everybody, you stay safe. And it's still afternoon for me here in Brazil. I assume it's evening or night for you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Stay safe. Bye-bye.